Welcome back to the Voices of Business, a Santa Clarita Valley Chamber of Commerce podcast. It's good to be with you. I'm your host, Joshua Maddux, and Corey Nathan, as usual, is off doing something else. The Voices of Business is where we talk about business in the Santa Clarita Valley, talk with business owners and leaders, mainly from the Santa Clarita Valley. Sometimes we don't just stick to business. We'll talk about leadership, management, life, and really wherever the conversation takes us. Please remember to subscribe if you haven't already. Tell a friend, leave us a rating and review. That really helps get the word out and really helps us with the conversations and those participate in the conversations like the one we're having today with Bryan Touchstone. Bryan is a seasoned leader with over 35 years of commercial retail management experience and has really helped shape retail experiences. And he brings his expertise to the heart of Santa Clarita as the general manager of the Valencia Town Center. It's good to have you on.
Thank you. It's good to be here. And when I hear 35 years, I just think, oh my gosh, where has it all gone?
Well, it's funny. I was talking to someone the other day and I was like, yeah, I used to go to the Chamber Expo when it was in the dirt lot where, Kohl's and Whole Foods are. And they're like, that was a dirt lot at one point? Like, I don't remember that.
It's amazing.
That didn't exist.
It's amazing how fast things can change.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. And we'll talk about change. We'll talk about where the mall sort of has been. But before we get into that, I want to get into just sort of knowing you a little bit more. You've got a fascinating background, sort of growing up in New York, going to Houston for school. You've got a CPA from what I was seeing, and going through some commercial real estate and some stuff there. Tell us, walk through how did all that unfold? What does that path look like?
Wow, your private detectives have been working overtime. All right. So a quick snapshot of just a general bio and more focused on career. But yes, I was born in Texas, grew up in Buffalo, New York, in that area. And moved back to Texas. I've lived in about 15 different states, mostly related to my career. So in the early 80s, let's just say, I started to manage real estate. I had originally gone to college in search of a degree in radio and television. So I was actually working as a radio disc jockey in that particular market. And so because I was working in radio at the time, and I was hired by a company who was trying to telemarket real estate. So they liked my voice, and I did not have the Texas drawl or anything like that. So they were like, thumbs up on that. So they hired me. And then about 3 months later, they said, okay, we want you to manage an office building. I'm like, oh, sure. What is that? So that's how I kind of got into the real estate management business. And from there, I made the jump over to shopping centers. That would have been about the mid 80s. And then by the end of the 80s, I was managing, 1+ million square foot enclosed regional shopping malls. There was a 5-year period there where I moved every single year. My first mall was out in West Texas in a town called Big Spring. From there, I was moved to Huron, South Dakota. These are great markets, by the way. And from there, I went to a company called Pyramid in the Northeast and managed my first 1,000,000 square foot plus super regional shopping center. So beyond that point, I continued with them, and then around 1990, I decided I wanted to go back to college and finish my degree, but I just decided I would just move away from radio and television and go for a business degree. So I got a BBA in accounting, graduating summa cum laude, and then ultimately went to work for Arthur Andersen for a few years and did a little bit more accounting. Passed the CPA exam, got my CPA, and then I'm done with this. I got my CPA. Accounting was just not sufficiently interesting for me. So I went back into property management and went to work for Rouse in Milwaukee. From there, I moved to Salt Lake City with Rouse, managing another super regional mall. And it was a great property. We were like the 900-pound gorilla in the market. So that was a lot of fun. It was a nice scenario to be able to say, to dictate terms when anybody wanted to come into your shopping center. So it was nice. Um, and then after that, I went into asset management. I decided that, hey, if I combine my accounting with my management, I might be able to make that leap up to asset management. And I did. So from there, I moved to Washington, D.C. and worked for the Mills Corporation. They were subsequently bought out by Simon. But at the same time, I moved to Denver to get back closer to the mountains. One of my big hobbies is photography, and I wanted to get back uh, to a more photography centric part of the country. And so, from there, I worked for Denver International Airport for about 5 years as the director of their concessions program, which is, which was like really commercial real estate, commercial retail management. But this program was phenomenal. It was basically the size of a strip center, about 200,000 square feet, but it was doing like $250 million in sales out of that small space. So it was a killer in terms of its sales per square foot. And from there, I moved back into an asset management role with a local developer, and then subsequently ended up working for Centennial. We moved over to Virginia, and I managed Dulles Town Center for a while, and then from there, semi-retired for about 3 months, and then another opportunity with Centennial came up here in Los Angeles, and that brought me here. Now, the part I skipped really was the overall accounting piece, to be honest. So, because I'd gone from like auditing, and then I worked for a local Nashville accounting firm, and we had some really great clients in the country music business. So, it's been a very interesting career full of lots of different twists and turns. And it's something I look back and I think, there's not a single thing I would do over if I had a choice. So that kind of brings us up to modern times, as they say.
Yeah. It's always crazy to just like follow that path of, you know, where you've been and how you got to where you are. And, across the, different episodes that we've done to date, like some of the people are like, yeah, grew up in Santa Clarita, went to high school here. Other ones are halfway around the world, and all over the place. So you manage properties really all over the country. There's a ton of different cities that you listed off. What drew you to Santa Clarita other than, employment opportunity?
Well, I mean, to be candid, I mean, Santa Clarita is a great town, and part of my consideration for coming here was the fact that, you know, just basically the circumstances of the property, um, and the fact that there really isn't a lot of competition in a 14-mile radius. That was important because I really felt like that really spoke to the potential of the property too. The market has a great growth rate attached to it. It's I think one of the fastest growing of the smaller, areas of Los Angeles. And it's not really, it's like, I think it's like the third largest incorporated city in Los Angeles, something county, something like that. So, there was the growth rate. There was the fact that there was not a lot of competition. There was the fact, very important, that, I could actually live near where I work, and, not have to deal with the Los Angeles traffic. I was astonished to learn that the average commute in Santa Clarita is like 66 minutes each way. And I was like, man, that's a kind of patience I don't think I have. And so, but I live 13 minutes away from the mall, and I think that's a great commute by any city standards. And the city itself is tremendous. I mean, there's so many outdoor recreational opportunities. The weather is good. The people are just so nice, and they're so supportive of the property. Everyone from the city level down to the community level. It's astonishing to me how often it's expressed that people really love this shopping center. So when I looked at all of that, I was like, man, you just can't go wrong with this. And so there you have it. That was kind of the analysis that I did, and the folks at Centennial didn't have to really sell me on it at all.
Yeah. Yeah. You didn't want to live in Santa Clarita and manage something in, Studio City or something.
No, no.
I've done Santa Clarita to LAX in like 30 minutes at 4 o'clock in the morning. Like, you can do it.
It can be done.
You just got to find the right, hours, I guess.
Yeah, just get the old caffeine patch going and away you go.
Yeah. So obviously, looking at Valencia Town Center, want to talk about the mall and sort of what the history of that has looked like. The mall's been there for over 30 years. What do you think makes it really like a central element to the Santa Clarita community?
Well, there's a lot of different things. I think one, shopping is a very social experience, and some people come out here just to people watch, and that's great. People like to meet their friends out here. That gives them a great place to do that. And look, when it hits 110 degrees outside, it's nice to walk around in the air conditioning and experience that with your friends. So there's definitely a social aspect to it. I mean, and we've also got a really appealing tenant mix. We've got a great selection of restaurants. And so I think that those kind of things are very appealing to the local market. I think that also people take a great deal of ownership in the property. We get, as I think I mentioned before, we get a lot of feedback from people, and most of it's positive, even when I'm walking in the mall. So I love to share this story because it was so unique to this property. But we were doing a mall walk, and I was pointing out some things, and someone came up to us during this mall walk and said, "Are you with the mall management?" And we said, "Yes, we are." And she said, "What you guys have been doing here is tremendous. We're so excited about this property and where it's going to go, and you just want to wish you the best of luck." I mean, you could have knocked me over with a feather, because I can count exactly 0 other properties where that's happened in all of the properties I've managed. So it's wonderful that people own this property and they feel like it's their own. And in the course of what we're going to be doing with the property, we want to foster that. We are a part of this community, and we will always be a part of the community. And we want to make sure that we maximize that.
Yeah, I'll say for me personally, like going back, 5-10 years, looking at just the history of the mall, and it felt 5 years ago, it felt a little bit more corporate and felt, developed in the sense of, for lack of a better term, like cookie cutter, like, this is what we're doing at 45 other properties, so we're doing the same thing here. And, it doesn't have that feeling anymore. It's a lot more unique and Santa Clarita, for lack of a better explanation. Like, it doesn't have that cookie cutter copy and paste, which is good.
That's great.
Like,
No, I appreciate that.
It makes it unique and stuff. So for people who haven't visited the mall recently, for whatever reason, like, how would you guys describe like the experience of Valencia Town Center today? And I sort of just touched on that a little bit.
It's going to mean different things to different people. We've got a great customer base. You can come here to see a movie and go to a restaurant over on that side of the property. You can shop for all of your needs fashion wise inside the property. So really, it suits a lot of different purposes for a lot of different people. It's also a place, we have events here. We try to make those events as meaningful as we can to the local population. We do a lot of cooperative events with charitable organizations. Also, we work with some other, like, What's Up SCV on some of their promotional activities. So we try to mix a lot of different things in, and we try to get an offering out to the public every month. Some months we have like multiple things going on, we'll have coming up in June. So we've got, it'll be too late for this broadcast, but we have a big event coming up for Mother's Day. But following that, we've got what we call Beats and Eats, which is it's like a vendor fair. We'll be doing that on Town Center Drive. So we'll be closing the street off so people can walk that street and shop the vendors that we're going to have out there. It's a lot of fun, and people really enjoy it. When we've done similar things in the past, on even like a even on a slow night during the week, it's drawn like 2 and 3,000 people. So it's really very successful. And so we try to do things like that in addition to what we offer, like, tenant mix wise, to really maintain people's interest in the property. We just recently
Yeah.
opened Slice House, which is, I'm going to pronounce his name wrong, but it's a restaurant by Tony Gimignani, who is an award-winning pizza chef. And for those of you who haven't tried it yet, I highly recommend it. Pizza is 90% of my diet. So, uh, anytime I can go get pizza, I'm going to be there. And I got to tell you, it's really good. So those are the kind of things that people can experience here. We really want to try and make it something where, when you come to the mall, you have certain expectations, but we also want to create, scenarios where we're delighting you with maybe something unexpected that was unexpectedly pleasant for you.
Yeah. So looking back at like some of the history, and I know some of this, maybe before you were there, what are some of the biggest changes that Valencia Town Center has sort of seen over the past X number of years? I know with like expansions like the patios or, you know, when they moved the movie theater ages ago or, those types of elements, like, are there anything in the, past history that are big changes or even, more recent stuff that's, development, stuff like that?
Well, gosh, when I first got here, I met a gentleman named Jim Backer, I believe was his name. One of the original people who was involved in the development of the mall. So, in talking to him, I found that he kept loads of materials that kind of was about the mall's formative years, and so he very kindly loaned those to me. And then a year later, he came up to me at a board meeting and he says, "Oh, that stuff I loaned you, can I get that back?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, where did I put it?" I know, no, I didn't tell him this, but I was like, "Oh boy, I better go back and find that stuff." Luckily, it was right where I thought it would be, but I was like, "Oh my gosh." But it's amazing to me, that it really started as part of the New Hall land development, and which was a critical piece of the development of Santa Clarita, um, and that they had the vision to put this property here. It started
Mhm.
off as just really the main mall, and then the other pieces kind of developed after that. The theater was put in, and then we had like what I call the BJ's parcel, where BJ's Brew House is. So all that kind of came later. There was a big carousel at the entrance where I guess where Sicily's, that's one restaurant everybody
Yep.
says that I keep hearing a lot of good things about, but it was right there. And so that went away whenever the mall was kind of reconfigured. They put in a food court, and then around 2010 the patios was put in, which was sort of like the lifestyle component, where we brought in like Apple Store, Anthropology, and those types of excuse me, tenants. And that has kind of been the way the mall has laid out, since then. And so, one of the things we're looking at as we move forward with the redevelopment of the property, is that we want to basically position the property for the next generation of Santa Clarita, so that we can continue to offer the goods and services that people want to see in their hometown. It's grown with the market, and it will continue to change with the market.
Yeah, I know it's funny, you were talking about the carousel that used to be out front. I remember growing up, they used to shut down Town Center Drive, back before like the movie theater was out there. The movie theater was where the food court is today. Um, and they would do concerts, like concerts in the park style, but like down Town Center Drive, and you'd get, they'd close it down and you'd get few thousand people would show up and sit out in their lawn chairs and stuff right there in front of the mall.
Right.
And yeah, I'm not sure one of those types of events with the size of like, concerts in the park would work on concerts. Like concerts in the park's a great venue for that now. And that's partly just due to the fact that like the community has grown in size so much, over the years. And so, continuing to find venues for that. But you guys have a ton of other stuff. I mean, that you guys host from, 4th of July is a huge event at the mall. I know.
It
We've
is.
got the chamber has the Chamber Expo coming up. That is now this year going to be hosted at the mall, which I think is such a cool way to sort of collaborate and do that this year, which is really good. So,
Well, we've also got, we're going to be doing a little bit of jazz programming. Olive Branch
okay.
Theatrical is going to be hosting some jazz events in their space over on the I want to call it the former Sears wing of the patios.
Okay.
They also in the past have done their own theatrical productions there. There is going to be a summer series of those plays that they'll be doing. So we have, taken some really creative steps to kind of program that part of the patios. And so we've got those things going on. We're going to have a month-long art exhibit going into one of the spaces on that end of the patios. You're right. We do have 4th of July coming up, and we're going to have a VIP event going on the 3rd floor of the Macy's parking garage. So people there can enjoy, food, entertainment, and also probably the best view of the fireworks show that you can find. So we've got things like that going on. So like I say, we try to keep things programmed so that people come to the mall, they might find something unexpected that they really will find interesting.
Well, I think a lot of what you're talking about with things such as, different events and, the 4th of July stuff, the Chamber Expo, a lot of the other events that you're talking about are very much how do we partner with the community for events, not we're putting on an event that the community needs to support. And so how does your guys' team approach that sort of community building aspect through the events and partnership? Is there, what's the strategy behind that? What are you guys looking for if someone's in the community and is looking to host an event or, wants to connect further on that?
Sure. So in the past, I mean, some of the things we'll just use July 4th as an example. Last year, we partnered with the Wish Foundation to put on a VIP event on the 3rd floor of the Macy's parking garage. This was something that we just thought of as an idea at a staff meeting. And because we were doing some brainstorming, hey, what can we do? We got this really cool July 4th thing going on here. What can we do to kind of make it a little extra special? What can we do to bring it maybe a little bit to that next level, elevate it a little bit? And so
Yeah.
we came up with this idea, and it's like, okay, let's find a partner out in the community who wants to work with us on this. So, the Wish Foundation jumped on it, and so we worked out a plan. And by we, I mean Monique, the marketing manager, spearheaded this, and they were very helpful. They promoted it through their own email database. We worked with them on, programming the event and getting people to come out. And we sold about 250 tickets to the event, and were able to use some of the funds to make a contribution to the Wish Foundation. And so everybody was happy with the result. And it was a really good community event. And the people there, we got so much positive feedback from that. And it was a lot of fun. It was,
Yeah.
I have to say, the marketing manager here knows how to throw a good party. And, and so,
It's always a good thing.
yeah, so people had a really good time.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
then that's actually, I mean, just back to your original question, that's kind of how some things can evolve. And we're open to other ideas coming in from the community as well. So reach out to Monique here at the mall office, and and just kind of pitch the idea. We'd be happy to talk to you about it. So
Yeah. Well, and that 100% is shown through the exact events that we just talked about, through the Chamber Expo, through all of that type of stuff that you guys are already doing. It's definitely not just a, talk. You guys are definitely, it's definitely there and shown clearly. So, so there's obviously been a lot of talk and buzz, and a lot of people are curious about what the next, you know, 5 years, 10 years looks like for the mall. Obviously, we've already talked about, the past, and the mall's going to continue to partner with the community and a lot of that type of stuff. Is there anything, you know, I know everything is in the planning stage, and until construction's complete, nothing is finalized. But is there anything like
You
just,
sound like you've talked to developers before.
I've interviewed attorneys, we've done, yeah. Um, yeah, but like, what does that direction look like? Obviously, high level.
Sure. One of the things that, I think we have to acknowledge is that, the prior ownership of the mall, and then we're talking just a couple of years pre-COVID, had made some very significant announcements about, their plans and intentions to sort of, redevelop the shopping center and, bring some new retailing. Um, and so, they made those announcements, then COVID happened, time goes on. So, I think there's a little bit of, maybe fatigue and or impatience to see something happen, right? Because in everybody's minds,
Yeah.
they've been hearing about it for a long time. Uh,
Well, and there's expectations, I think, as well, of I'm expecting to see the exact plan that was talked about in 2019, type situation.
right.
And in reality, I think one of the other things that we do need to at least, address slightly is shopping patterns have changed in 5 years. How
Sure.
people go to the mall, what they go to the mall for, like, that's changed a little bit.
It has. Absolutely.
So it needs to adapt.
Absolutely. And that's why I say, the way we'll approach it is really just to reposition the center and make it appeal to the next generation of Santa Clarita because those shopping patterns changed. Um, and because, we have a center that, like it or not, is resistant to change because, we have a lot of agreements in place. And so to change things, we have to go back to the parties of those agreements and get their consent to changes and so on. So it actually is not as simple as, doing a plan, bidding it out, and getting shovels in the dirt. It's just not that
Yeah.
simple.
You
So
mean, zoning and permitting takes time? What?
it does. So we wish it could go faster. But
Yeah.
maybe that's good because maybe that means we plan better, right? And so we don't do anything
Yeah.
hasty. And so what we end up with though is something that's going to serve the community and something that's going to be something that Valencia is proud of. I can't go into specifics as to what's being talked about now, and it might not even be fruitful to do so because those plans could change in a week. There's a development team working on this, and they come up with new ideas all the time. Let's see how this works. And there are some things that are that are in the works that I would love to talk about, but I'd be hung if I did. So
Well, future episode.
future episode exactly. But it's just stay tuned. Give us a moment to do what we need to do. I think everybody's going to be very happy with the result.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's about all I can say about the redevelopment right now. Now I do want to actually make a little bit of a call out to the city because, I think one of the things that people have, that's kind of kept this at the forefront of people's minds is, the city is working on something called the town center plan. And this was probably a huge topic of conversation last year. And that's going to be an enormous benefit to us in our efforts to redevelop the property because it actually, as long as we kind of stay within the framework of the town center plan, which is very, very useful and flexible, it saves us a lot of the review processes that are inherent in a redevelopment. So,
Yep.
very forward thinking of the city, and Santa Clarita is very lucky to have such forward thinking city leaders.
Yeah. Yeah. And that type of stuff is really, I think, what keeps some of the development in Santa Clarita moving forward at the rate that it does, because they go in and they say, there's this piece of property and we would love to see A, B, or C here. And we'd love to see this direction of development. And if you come in and you're doing something with inside of that roughed out concept, and it is, it's a generalized direction that the city has of what they're looking for there. And if you come in and say, hey, I want to fulfill that, it cuts through a little bit of the red tape.
Sure.
And also the city has done some, pre-planning, and they've done some, there's a reason why the city is thinking that might make sense there.
Sure.
And, I look across Santa Clarita, I look at other, development projects that have gone on over the years, and, I'm on the Canyon Country side of things, and Vista Canyon has been a different mix of what initially was going to be there versus what's there today. And, that project has changed and transitioned over time, and it's half built out. And so, like you said, until the shovels are in the, even when the shovels are in the ground, it still might change.
It can.
Yeah. You start to build the shell of a building and you're like, this is going to be, office space. And it's like, well, no one wants to work in an office space anymore. Cool. Now it's apartments. Yeah. So.
Well, let me ask you, what would you like to see in a redevelopment of the mall?
I've seen different stuff that, some of the different local news stations have published. And I think having that sort of mixed use, having, I know I go out to like Topanga and, Glendale Galleria and some of those different like open space outdoor areas. That's a little bit more of a, the patios is a nice area. But having those sort of more like iconic Americana, like outdoor grass park area that can be utilized for that type of an event space, or, you go and you hang out. And some of those are, there's two mindsets, I think, in a mall space. There's the mall of, I have to go there to go grab 3 things, or we're going there to hang out for the afternoon. And I think a lot of the redevelopment of different malls has been looking at how do we become a destination and less of a strip mall, essentially. And so I think the history of the direction, with things like I said, like with the patios and with some of that development already, has allowed for some of that general direction. So yeah, I'm interested to see, fast forward 5 years, where we at type situation.
You and me both.
But, so. Well, I know there's a tragedy over there right now. I heard Chick-fil-A is temporarily closed. Well, they're doing a kitchen remodel.
Yes, very sad.
So, but I have heard that the one off over by Magic Mountain is open. So
yes.
We're opening.
Yes,
we're not without.
All chicken need should be satisfied. So we don't want people to go without. So, but we've also got Popeyes here in food court if anybody needs that chicken fix right away. So
there you go. That's good. That's good. Awesome. Well, is there anything else that, people need to know about what's happening at the mall? Obviously, we'll have, the social media, website, all that type of stuff in the show notes and in the YouTube description and all of that. So we'll have all that stuff where people can find out, upcoming events, for months to come. But is there anything else that you guys want to talk about or touch on or people should know about?
We're working with the Leap Museum to we had worked with them last year to take a space and make it sort of like a pop-up for kids to come, and it was themed around career objectives, and so that was so popular it was unreal. And so we had people coming in and they liked it so much. They were only going to be open for a short time. They extended. And so they want to do something similar again this year. So we're going to have the Leap Museum back. So June for the Leap Museum. And we have the usual back to school coming up. Last year we did a pumpkin patch, which brought in about 25,000 people over a 2-week period. And we did that in conjunction with a Spirit Halloween. So there was a nice sort of synergy between the two uses. We did those over on the former Sears end of the mall, and that brought a lot of activity in the area. We'd love to have them back, but we will definitely have a pumpkin patch again. So, we have a lot of different events coming up at the mall. I'm glad we'll be attaching our information to the podcast because people can keep up with things, and we have things come up at the last minute too that we put in. So
Yeah, and I like some of the aspects that you're talking about, like the the types of events you guys are doing are, again, it just goes back to what we've been talking about. Like, they're community centered, like the pumpkin patch. You've got a corporate store, you've got Spirit Halloween coming in, but then how do we do something that is, you know, community element? Like, you bring in the classic pumpkin patch, you
yeah,
bring in, those elements. That's cool.
yeah,
It's cool. So, yeah, I will say Santa Clarita, as a whole, needs a permanent children's museum. I don't know if that ends up at the mall or elsewhere, but
you never know.
I know there's been talks, there's been a city survey, and there's been other stuff going around. So, the good thing is there's conversations happening. So that's always the start of it.
Absolutely.
So awesome. Well, it's been an awesome conversation. Before we close out, do you have any questions for me? Get to flip the script a little bit there.
Well, I've already asked you the big one about what you'd like to see at the mall. So how did you get involved in doing podcasts? I'm curious about.
So I own a marketing agency.
Mhm.
And so we're full service digital marketing agency. And I actually started doing podcasting during COVID because my big 2020, goal was to join the chamber and do more in-person events. And then we know how that went quickly south. And so my team at the time was entirely remote, and I had an office in my garage. And so I didn't see the light of day or many humans. And so I was like, I want to be able to have conversations with different people, and I can't go to Starbucks and hang out and talk to people because that's just not something you can do right now. And so I started a podcast just talking to other business owners and talking about, what they're doing and the struggles that they've faced. And then life happened and got busy, and I, did a bunch of episodes there. And Corey, my co-host, he and I were chatting. He actually is in podcast production. Like, this is what he does. He hosts a handful of shows and produces and does all that. And so he and I were talking, and we both sort of had the same, like, man, we need a Santa Clarita podcast. Like, we need something that talks to business owners here in Santa Clarita. And at that point, we were trying to figure out, like, okay, do we just hit a bunch of random businesses and just do it that way? Like, can we partner with somebody? And we approached the chamber on it and said, hey, this is what we'd love to do. And the chamber said, yeah, we've been thinking about something. And we circled back and said, okay, here's the plan. Like, here's some guests we want to record with. And the chamber was like, oh, you're serious. And it was very much that element of, you have people who come in and are like, you guys should do this. And you're like, cool. I'm not putting that together. I don't have time to do that. But then someone else comes in and says, okay, I want to host this event at the mall. This is what I want to do. These are the vendors I have. This is what I want to do. I've got all my stuff set up. And you're like, oh, okay, let's figure out a date. Let's find what works. Like, those are two very different events.
Right.
And that's sort of how it went. So we approached the chamber on it, and it's been great. It's been awesome conversations. And it's just good to, dig into some of Santa Clarita's history and some of the big businesses, small businesses, all different stuff out here, and really just, get to know everybody a little bit better.
Well, that's really cool. I mean, and so you took the social isolation of COVID and kind of turned it into something more social. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What
it's been good.
So have you learned anything that's sort of unexpected that you kind of never thought you would, and that maybe was a little bit of a paradigm shift for you?
What I quickly found was this is a medium that does a few things. It, one, allows us to have a really good conversation, to get to know each other better. It produces content that allows the community to get to know both of us. And it's really just a different medium. And I enjoy having these conversations, enjoy, getting to know people and, we chatted for 5 minutes at a chamber event, but there's so much more that you can actually sit down and have a conversation about.
Sure.
And sort of let others sort of sit there and listen to it as well. So it's fun.
Well, listen, I appreciate you having me on your podcast, and thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Awesome. Yeah, it was great having you. As always, please follow, rate, and review us wherever you get your podcast. You can follow The Voices of Business on social media. You can find me, Joshua Maddux, on LinkedIn and other socials. You can follow Corey at Corey S. Nathan, and the mall's contact info and social media and website will all be in the show notes as well. We'd love to have you or other local business leaders join in on the conversation. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on The Voices of Business.